The Crystal Charter, Daughter of the Red Seal. Chapter 30. Somebody screamed. Maybe couldn't see it, but she could hear the mixed sounds of fighting, whirring gears of artificer machinery, and cries of anguish. It wasn't the sound of a child screaming, but a man. The soldier. I can go and save the soldier, fluttered through Maybe's unfocused brain. She felt a jarring pain in her face, through her nose. Small, strong hands were bruising her wrists. Her shirt and cloak bunched over her shoulder, back shredded across the rough ground. No, you can't. He died. You left him to die. She remembered watching him, doing nothing to help. She was going to leave them all to die. Whoever was holding her let go, so Maybe slipped with a jolt in her heart. She recognized the sound of a sword being drawn before her tender head slammed into the ground, wavering her already fading consciousness. Sourceless sounds faded in and out of her dizzy awareness. Go! 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 We don't have time to fuck about making her comfortable, roared a furious female voice sometime later. Are all the prisoners out? Came a calmer male voice. Maybe recognized their tongue. They were speaking in Nemanian. All of them, heading into the East Mountain. Lurs has 'em, shot the woman. Who is this, anyway? Questioned the male. Maybe felt a toe nudge her rib. The new Sameen, the woman's reply was cold fury. Maybe felt a hot glob of spit land in her face, but the only response she could manage was to loll her head away from the source. The ground shifted beneath her, flowing in a zigzag motion. Membranous leather snapped beside her ear, the noise and movement calling her back into the senseless darkness. Cold. Drowning. Water dashed in Maybe's face. She threw herself upright with a scream of panic. The flash of pain that tore through her head reduced her back into a curled heap, fingers tangled in her hair as she pressed her palms to her scalp. Semi-dry blood was crusting at the back of her head by a tender gash. Give us one reason why we shouldn't kill you, came the man's voice from before, with a thick accent over his greeny uncommon. Maybe's eyes creaked open. Sticky with damp road dust, not quite washed away by the water tossed over her. She took in the man. His skin was as red as the wastes he lived in, his hair as grey as ash, in a warrior tail down his back. He was dressed in the light leather of Lemanian fighters, hidden beneath swaths of fabric and shadows of the dark cabin she was inside. Give me one reason why you would kill me, she fired back with a pathetic croak. Not the tone she was aiming for, but she managed a full response in Nemanian. You're a Sameen, aren't you? He grunted, switching back to his native tongue. Yes, she cut back, falling silent as the man's blade appeared in his hand and darkness flickered in his deep brown eyes. Wait, that's no reason to kill me. I'm here on King's business. She lifted her hands in deference, unbound. She wriggled and felt the blades had been removed from their sheath at the base of her spine. If you're a Sameen, then you're as murderous as the witches in the canyon, he said with certainty. I have murdered no one, sir. My family is the Sameen trading family, sent to trade with witches in the main, just for magical items that go within the laws of the Green Kingdom. Her voice was hoarse, but she pushed through the pain in her face, renewed with every word. She met his eyes. Something almost softened in his face. Papa, she doesn't know, just like Al said. It was then that Maybe noticed the girl, of an age with her. She moved to stand beside her father with fluid grace. They had the same ruby skin, a sign they had been raised in the waste and touched by Cain's fire. Her hair, black as Arachne's web, left a straight cascade about her shoulders. Her dark eyes shimmered with attenuating hate. "Shh, child," the man turned to the young woman with tenderness. "Your brother was right, but that doesn't mean you should have left her alive." "Well, what do we do then? Kill her now that we know she's as ignorant as Olive Green? Why not just kill everyone?" The girl sulked back. "What do you suggest? Keeping her as a pet?" "I am no pet," Maybe snarled, before fear could still her tongue. She couldn't focus on their words for long, without a throb pulsing through her head and distracting her. But she wasn't going to sit in silence and let strangers decide her fate. "How do I kill you then?" hissed the girl in perfect Greenian, drawing Maybe's own knife from behind her. Maybe started at her fluid language, her weapon in the hands of someone else. "Never," warned her father. "The moment has passed for that action." The girl, never, paused and moved away to pick her nails with Maybe's beloved blade. "You truly have no idea what being a member of the Sumine family means, do you?" she asked in Nemanian. "Being a Sumine means you're a trader. My father travelled Nemain for decades, buying magic items. My family hasn't done anything," Maybe argued. "Then why do you go to Camulus? I've asked around the city. Your family has never brought anything from there," Never's father asked. "And why should I tell you?" Maybe growled through her failing voice. The man didn't respond. He turned away from Maybe. His daughter flicked Maybe's blade up in the air and caught it, and shot her a threatening grin. When the man turned back, he offered Maybe a glass of water, but held it just out of her reach when she leaned forward to take it. "It's not like it's a secret," Maybe croaked out with a scowl. "You could ask anyone in Camulus." He continued to stare at her. "We trade along the run of cities and towns on the west coast, finishing at Safe Bay within Camulus. There we collect the king's burden, at King Jasic's request. A tradition of sorts, a peace offering between humans and witches. Then we sail back to Elpis and hand it over to the king's personal witch guard. Done." He stretched out and handed her the water, which she sloshed down her front, in a rush to drink it all before he could take it away. "That confirms what we heard, father," Never muttered. "What is this king's burden that you collect?" she asked Maybe from over her father's shoulder. "I've never looked in it. You're not supposed to," Maybe shrugged. She dropped her empty cup on the floor and watched it roll along the dust-covered wood, eyes locked on the girl holding one of her daggers. "Never told me what she saw back there. She was going to kill you until you shouted out to stop. You saw the sacrifices taking place, and you tried to intervene, didn't you? She said you looked horrified, as though you didn't know." Maybe's eyes widened at the carnage hidden beneath her pounding head. "That crystal, that has nothing to do with me, I swear. I swear I didn't know. If you're going to kill me for that, you need to know I know nothing." "Let me tell you a story, Miss Sumine," the man cooed. "I want to see if this scenario is familiar to you." He shifted to sit at a level with her, a pained gaze fixed onto her. 2 years ago, our village, a tiny place, hidden deep in the wastes, was destroyed. Dozens of my neighbors and friends were taken by the witches who burned our houses to the ground, including my wife. "My mother," interrupted Never with a snarl. "My son my daughter escaped with me, but we saw my wife taken by a band of witches wearing unfamiliar uniforms. Not the black leathers of the warriors who roam the wastes from the war guild, and not the dark robes of the warlocks. We tracked these witches across the wastes until we reached that place in the canyon where we found you. And do you know what we saw there? Maybe shook her head, rattling the pain around, not disagreeing with the man. She knew what was coming, knew why they had been in that cavern last night, but wanted to deny it with all her heart. We saw the people who lived beside us, sacrificed on that crystal and discarded. My wife, my love, tossed aside like pieces of ruined meat. And you know what we heard. His voice was soft. Maybe raised her head to look at him, saw the pain hiding beneath him and the fury warping his daughter's expression. We overheard the witches say that Sir Sumine had left for Camulus, and that the blood offering had been successful that year. We sped to Camulus as fast as we could, with every intention of killing this Sumine. But the ship had already left. Hot tears slid down Maybe's pained cheeks, leaving tracks in the dirt. 2 years ago was when she had last come with her father. She would have been sat at the inn, bored, whilst these people suffered so much. I have a theory, he continued. Artificers have lived in the gorge for centuries. I wonder how many small towns, how many lone travellers have become the victim to your king, and it has been blamed with such convenience on warlocks. We went to our own guild, the defenders of this land, to be turned away. We were told it was warlocks trying to frame our peaceful allies, that no one would help us. But we know what we saw, and we know whose name is bathed in the blood of my wife. I am not falling for the excuses of a weak wizard, he growled. Neva crept closer to Maybe, her warm breath caressing Maybe's damp cheeks. Did you know? No, I swear I didn't. I'm sorry. I know the term blood offering. That's all I know. It's the offering of Sumine blood. It's just a little cut on our hands. It's symbolic. Maybe sobbed back. Did your father know? She asked, mirroring her own father's cool tone. My father was a good man. Did he know? Shouted Neva's father. I don't know. I really don't. Maybe blubbed into her hands. Neva stirred and backed away, muttering with her father in the corner. They cast meaningful glances back to Maybe, whose crying was beginning to fade. She knew she should focus on her breathing, but the pain in her head was growing stronger, her thoughts faltering. It was too much to digest. You have 2 options, Lady Sumine, called the Nemanian man. Maybe didn't even see the point in correcting him. Neva strolled over to her crumpled form on the floor. First option, I kill you now, Neva threatened. Maybe's Christ still held aloft. You said you offer your blood in the canyon. If your blood is worth something to these witches, killing you removes whatever it is that they need. We heard in Camulus that you were the last Sumine. No doubt your blood is offered as some form of consent, though I understand little enough about blood magic to know how or why. And that's why I give you option number 2. Neva smirked. If you no longer want the deaths of innocent people in your name, of course I don't, Maybe fired. So you wish to see an end to this too? Neva asked. Certainly. I only want to make things right, she thought, holding her hand over the lump by her chest. Neva squatted on her heels and stared at Maybe in deep judgment. Maybe held herself steady against the constant pain in her head and the forceful gaze of the young woman in front of her. "Then come north with me. If you are here on royal business, I am guessing that you have been to the palace, yes? Help me and my brother break into the castle, so we can have a little chat with the king."